All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome. My name is Danny Soberano. I'm today's host. Um, and today I'll be talking to Yanyi, poet extraordinaire, someone I admire very, very deeply. And today I'd like to start by acknowledging that this conversation for me is taking place on the land of the Wurundjeri, Woiwurrung, and Boonwurrung people of the Kulin Nation. I pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people this conversation reaches. And where are you at, Yinyi?
Where am I? I am speaking to you from stolen Coast Salish lands, specifically the ancestral lands of the Suquamish and Duwamish peoples. I recognize the stewardship of Seattle's green spaces by these peoples long before colonization and its disruption because of colonization. I also acknowledge that they continue this work today by paying rent to the Chief Seattle Club, and I invite you to do the same wherever you are.
Solid. Yeah, cool. This event is produced by Liminal Magazine in collaboration with the Wheeler Center. And to give some information about Yinyi, Yinyi is the author of Dream of the Divided Field and The Year of Blue Water, which won the Yale Series of Younger Poets Prize in 2018. He teaches poetry at the Warren Wilson MFA program for writers and is the founder of the Asian American Literary Archive. It's very great to be joined by you today, Yinyi. I'm really glad you said yes to this.
I am really enjoying how good you sound right now.
I'm glad you do. To start, I really wanted to ask you if you've eaten dinner because I know it's like 7 p.m. where you are.
The answer is absolutely, and it's probably only first dinner.
First dinner. Oh,
Yeah.
I love the first dinner. What did you have for dinner?
I made a burrito bowl. I made some al pastor the other night, and I like cracked it out today. Made some like corn on the stove, a little salt and pepper, some butter, some cilantro, just like throwing it all in, tomato, all the good stuff, and some guac and
Oh,
cheese, some queso
nice.
fresco. Yeah, I accidentally gave you the entire recipe, so
Yeah,
enjoy.
yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it. I will try that out. That actually like really truly reminds me of a poem from The Year of Blue Water where you talk about food and you talk about cooking and
Mm.
about how when you make a dish you'll have more because you can make something out of the leftovers. I'm really glad that you like spoke to me in detail about the food because I'm like imagining that so vividly. Do you? Because I just really want to get a sense of like where you are and what you're doing at the moment. And I really do want to ask you like what has been occupying your mind recently? What's occupying your mind today?
Oh, wow. I think like right now what I've been doing is always writing, like writing. Um, but also I am really working on thinking about collective contribution and where I fit in that puzzle. So I think like one can often get swept up in the like, I can help here and I can help here and I can help here. And then suddenly you're part of like 10 collectives and you're going to protests and doing all these things. And I've been really trying to actually pare back on putting my energy out and trying to concentrate that deeply into something. So that for me has been the Asian American Literary Archive in the past couple of weeks. Yeah, I've had to do a lot of like thinking about really intentionally where do I want to put my time outside of writing, because writing is something that I do in community, but also something that really like mechanically and materially happens when I'm alone. So what do I want to make in community with people, and in what way can that contribute to larger ideas of liberation that make sense for the skills that I have.
Yeah. I found it really hard to find questions to ask you because I feel like in your work you ask the questions and you also answer them. And when you started talking about
Mm,
collective and started talking about how that's been occupying your mind, I've been like, yeah, I get that experience from reading your book, both of your books.
mhm.
And you know, I wrote this I wrote this in my review of The Year of Blue Water. But I want to restate it pretty explicitly that when I read Year of Blue Water and when I've been reading Dream of the Divided Field, I really truly like didn't feel alone. I really felt like there were not just the one poet. You know, often like when you read a poetry collection, it feels like you're with the one poet. But I felt like when I was reading Year of Blue Water, I was with the poets that you were also convening with. And it just really, I'm like truly just astounded by how well crafted that is, like that experience.
Mm.
Yeah. It's your mission in my brain is like so focused. It's so clear. And I was thinking that you're probably one of the most put together writers I've seen. And when you were saying what you were doing and you were like, oh, I've been writing and then I've been doing these things, I'm like, whoa, I'm like playing video games. You know what I mean? Like, I wish I was that put together. Is that what your day to day life looks like? Is that what your routine is like? Do you have a routine?
Um, I do. Right now I'm experimenting a little bit with my routine, but usually I wake up on the earlier side. No matter what I do, my morning routine always takes almost exactly an hour. So I just accept that whatever time I wake up, it's going to take me an hour before I can start doing anything. So I wake up at 5 or 6, usually 6 right now. And it takes me about an hour to do my morning things, and then I will today I experimented with doing admin work and other writing career work. But usually I write for about an hour and a half. And that I think speaks to just the kind of writer that I am. I think fiction writers have this term, which is like you're either a discovery writer or you're an outliner. I'm definitely a discovery writer. Um, I write in poetic prose, and depending on the density of the work, that those will turn into lineated poems or not. And so there's a lot of like exploring at different cycles of the work because right now I feel like I've been trying to understand where I want to go next for a couple of years now, which has been a new experience for me because I generally like after a year or so, I have like a bunch of stuff where I'm like, I really think that this is where I'm going. But what it feels like in my brain is more like there's multiple lanes of traffic all trying to go into the like same place. Um, so yeah, so that's my writing. My writing life is very vast, as you can tell. And then I have a day job. I work as a software engineer from 9 to 5, and that's what I just finished before I hopped on over here. And I enjoy that job for very different reasons. Um, and then, yeah, doing a lot of stuff, with other people, archive, Asian American Literature Festival, bunch of other things.
That's so cool. I really
And watching
truly
TV. I do
you
watch TV.
you do watch TV. What have you been watching?
I just started watching Long Island Medium.
Oh,
Have you ever
okay.
heard of that show?
No. Yeah.
It's a
Is it
reality show
reality?
that,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Um no, I've been watching like anime. Yeah.
Ooh, nice. I
Yeah,
love
yeah, yeah.
anime.
Yeah, yeah. Uh I've been watching Spy Family. Have you heard of Spy Family?
No.
No. It's cool. I like it. It's cozy. It's
Oh,
about
good.
a spy who has to like pretend to have a family in order to infiltrate like the government, and so it becomes about like
Mm,
all their dynamics and like their kid is sidekick. It's very cute. Um, I am really fascinated by what you said, and you said that you start writing poems in the prose form. I don't think I've
hmm
heard someone say that, and like I really have been so fixated when it comes to your work on the prose poetry aspect because it is such a it's not a form that I see often, and it's not a form that I see often done well. And I wanted to ask you like how and like why does it begin in prose form for you?
mm-hmm. Well, for me, there's I'm a deeply critical person, mostly self-directed. And for a lot of people, that shows up as an inner critic, internalized editor, which I've written a lot about in my advice column. A lot of a lot of what I say to other people, I have tried to practice myself. But writing in prose is, for me, a really invaluable part of my practice around letting go of any kind of um, instituted or foisted upon kind of form for the work. So it really is my way of not having expectations of what it's going to be. This could be a journal entry. This could be me just saying blah, 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 blah. Like if you've read any of those, like how to write books, like Natalie Goldberg's Writing Down the Bones, or Julia Cameron's Morning Pages practice from The Artist's Way, there's a lot of like get the junk out of your head kind of parts of writing. And I always forget about this because sometimes I take time away from writing, but when I come back, I always expect myself to like be writing this brilliant work all the time. But it really is not like that. It's a lot more like I'm writing about what's going on in my day, blah, blah, blah. And, it's like taking a walk and a thought pops into your head. And then suddenly I go in that little skinny little corridor and like try to understand what comes at the end of that, whether it's going to end, with a beautiful beach or something else. But I never know exactly what I should be writing about. That comes to me, but I have to just show up and be writing, and something in that practice will spark the like, ooh, like this made me think of that. And really leaning into that is something that I really have to do. So the prose form lets me do that. I think I think every poet at some point becomes really obsessed with couplets. I had a couplet phase. And yeah, like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think that like you will notice that when you are in your couplet phase, you want to write poems of a very particular length of breath or a very particular kind of um, thought, even, or, let's end with an epiphany and like call it a day. So yeah, so that's why I kind of start with prose. But obviously sometimes I end up with prose poems.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny you talk about the couplet phase. I feel like probably I'm still in it. Um,
Sorry to couplet you out.
yeah. I love my favorite part of a couplet is the when it stops being one. Like that's my favorite way that it ends is that there's the one line. It's all couplets and then it's one line. I'm like, yeah, drop that mic,
Mhm.
like, um,
What what has what has your practice been like with that singular line? Because not everyone does that. Why do you end on the single line? What do you like? What do you like about that landing, if it's a landing or a release?
yeah, I think I really love a good ending. I think for me, probably as a poet, like the ending is where everything goes. Like that's like it all builds to that for me, and I think that's probably why also that I like just love the couplet, because it's like, it's also like the couplet. It's very satisfying as well visually, right? It's like it's two 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 two, and all the I mean, very typically it's the competing ideas, right? The first line, and then it competes with the second line, and then so forth. And so I feel like that final single line ties it all together, or it like says something about, or breaks. I mean, it does break everything that you've just made. Yeah, yeah. So very recently I had to start getting blood tests for stuff. And my veins are tiny. They're so small. And I try to like go to the same person every time, because otherwise they're just not going to have a good time. And I've had to fast for these blood tests. And at this point, like, I've become like so afraid of like what's going to happen, because I'm just like, oh, I know we're going to do this dance of like, you're going to tell me my veins are small. I'm going to agree with you. And then we're going to like try to like do this thing. And at my last appointment, I got so like afraid and nervous that, and I haven't been reading poetry for quite some time now. Like, I'm very much out of practice, but something just like emerged out of my psyche, and my brain just started reciting Object Permanence by Nicole Seeley. Are you familiar with that poem?
Yeah, the Cento. It's a beautiful poem. It's a love poem, right?
Yeah, it's a love poem. That's really truly like, for me, the quintessential couplet poem, and then the single line. But yeah, I was just sitting in that chair with the nurse, and I just kept reciting the first line because I couldn't remember the rest of it. I was just like, how does it start again? I don't remember how it starts. Do you remember how it starts?
No, I don't have that one memorized, but I would love to hear you say the lines when you find them or when they come back to you.
Yeah, I will. I truly will. But yeah, that experience, I was just like, oh, like poems are still my friend, even though it's been a long time. And you really, like, you've spoken before in the past about like the poem, like the actual just like poem as a companion to life. I got my first testosterone shot 2 weeks ago. And yeah, I'm like nothing's happening.
Gemini.
Yeah.
Something's happening.
Whoa,
Something's
true.
happening.
Hey, true. I didn't even think about that. Whoa.
I know. I didn't think about it until someone else was like, "Oh, you're a Leo," and I'm like, "I am." No, oh, I am.
Yeah. That's cool. And yeah. I was getting the shot done. I don't know what the process is in other places, but for this one, they did intramuscular. It's injected into the mask. The intramuscular shot, and it takes like 2-3 minutes. And like for having a needle in your body for 2 to 3 minutes is just like a really wild.
Long time.
It's really wild. Like it's there. And yeah, I was talking to the nurse, and I was like, oh, I'm trying to like recite a poem at the moment. And she was like, okay, I'll try to stop talking. And then I was like, no, please continue. I need any distraction possible. But the thing with like testosterone for me, if you allow me to like share this, is that I've been thinking about it for like the last 6 years. It's really, I think for a lot of people, it's like, well, for some people, it's like very clear cut. I want this. But for me, like, my doubt is like a fundamental part of the process, like my doubts about it, my like fear of the transition is so fundamental. And I was reading one of the poems in Dream of the Divided Field. And it really, because I just felt so kind of by myself. It's just like me and the nurse, and she's trying to like talk to me, and I'm trying to like not freak out through the pain. And you have a poem, it's called Anti-Obad. And the last lines are, I cannot fear my own face knowing its alterations. And I was like super sleep deprived when I read this for the first time, and it like woke me up. I was like, yeah, that's what that's what it is. I can't feel my own face.
Mm-hmm.
Because what's gonna happen, you know? I've been trying to like find, like in the lead up to my first shot, I was trying to find a lot of detransition stories because I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
know about people who like made the journey and then went back. And I must not have looked deeply because the things I found were not, the archive is not there. Or like I
Mm.
haven't found like one that's like respectful. And so when I
Mm-hmm.
read that poem, I was just like, this is what I needed to hear. And I think that that poem, Anti-Obad, is going to be my companion for the rest of my shots, if I choose to keep taking more shots.
That's really lovely to hear. And congratulations to your Gemini T Day. And Gemini is a mutable sign, so over and across the border, you might go. So I really relate to that doubt that you're talking about. Um, I think like doubt is such an important part of the process of transitioning physically in particular. There's the like coming out part of it, right? There's should I do it, should I not do it? But physical transition is in a way involuntarily, well, voluntarily, but like you don't get to choose who sees you as trans, and also not what kind of trans person you are. So it's actually it feels a lot more dangerous in a lot of ways because for me, the physical transition was absolutely going to be a permanent one. For example, like there are just some characteristics that don't, even if you decide to detransition, that don't like go back to the way that they were. And my body has changed like irrevocably throughout the process. So it's a really big deal. Um, and the I think that some people may seem to make that decision quickly, but they may have been waiting their entire life in order to take that leap. Um, I think also the thing that you're saying about doubt being an important part of your process, um, doubt is a really important part of my writing process, I think, as well. And I'm curious if you find that that value sneaks into your writing for you as well.
Doubt. Yeah, yeah, it does. I feel like it's the tension that I always like come up against is doubt, you know,
Mm.
is the, like you, I'm a discovery writer. I'm very much, I can't plan anything. It has to take its own path. And I think doubt is really conducive to that kind of writing. I think there's so much that I don't know, and there's so much that I like will never know. And I think poetry and writing is like in any small way an attempt to like try to understand something, right? Is to try to
Mhm.
create a truth. And it's yeah, I always feel like doubt and certainty, yeah, are really huge propellers for my own writing. And I think that I think it's very in line also with my Christian upbringing, where I I believe in God. I like am a Christian, and I try to practice it in the ways that feel true to me. And I feel like doubt is something that growing up in youth group, in church group, I feel like doubt is has when I was younger at least was very much like an enemy of the church. And I feel like anyone who experienced doubt about faith, about the practices of the church, was someone who like is, not part of the collective.
Mhm.
And so it became really important for me, and I realized that the only way I can make it through this and through life and through any thinking around spirituality, doubt has to play a part in it. Because if this is airtight forever, I don't think that that's true to me. And so I really do want to approach it in my writing in the same way. But it's funny that you asked me that because I have not like written poetry in like years. I'm like officially on a indefinite hiatus from like writing, um, or writing poetry. And recently I've been like trying to do other creative things. And I feel like doubt is the first thing that I've tried that I feel like doubt is what makes me start something. Like right now, so like I'm not trying to make anything that's publishable. But right now I'm like trying to make a rap album. And like I have no natural talent for rapping. Like truly, like you could not pick a person less qualified to try to make a rap album. But it came from me wanting to like put my body and put my brain in a different space and to put it in a place where I just like truly don't know anything. Like I didn't grow up like loving hip hop or anything like that, but I was just like, what if this happened? What if this could be done? Yeah.
Mhm.
Does that answer anything?
No, it really answers a lot. I had a couple of thoughts when you were responding. The maybe I'll just talk about it in reverse chronological order. I I have also, as I mentioned earlier, I'm in this like like not permanent, but like pretty long discovery place right now. And as I get older, something that I think I'm coming to understand is that the longer you're around, the longer it takes for things to feel new. Um, for like, you know, the work to be exciting and interesting to you, to be inspired by, the writing that's coming out every day, because we're blessed to have so many amazing journals now. But it takes longer to feel that surprise or to feel that uncertainty. And I think venturing into other arts, I like make miniatures and I've been like listening to, fiction, nonfiction. I haven't been reading poetry very much outside of the poems I recite to myself when I'm nervous. Um, but I think all of that that all comes back. I think it's a really long circle. We once thought the earth was flat, right? It feels like I'm not writing, but I think eventually I'm gonna get back to writing. And I think I'm like coming back to something right now. I just have to trust myself that that's happening. Um, so I think that's what I wanted to say about you mentioning like your indefinite hiatus. I think um it's given you permission to admit to yourself that you need and want more from the poetry that you have been creating. And I trust that you'll go back to writing at some point, even if it's like 20 years from now. So, if it's in you, if it's in your body, it's in your breath, that kind of thing. The other thing I wanted to respond to was what you said about your Christian upbringing and the importance of doubt and uncertainty as a practice, actually, because of the things that you grew up with. I did not grow up in a Christian household. I grew up in a diligently atheist one, thanks now. Um, but I think the practice of doubt in the face of any kind of authority is also an assertion of individuality, and it's a practice of your own thinking and feeling spirit. Sometimes doubt is that feeling in your gut that like there's something not right here, but I don't know what, and I can't give you a reason, but I need to leave or whatever. Um, and I think in that way, I think what you said earlier about how poetry in itself is about getting moving into that uncertainty as a practice, and being comfortable with the unknown is actually an extraordinarily important part of the practice that writing programs don't teach you. It's something that you have to experientially understand. Um, and I find doubt to be definitely my own kind of devotional practice that there is a submission that you have to practice to the unknown, to um, what some call the divine or God, or what others may call the wheel of fortune, whatever your particular set of beliefs are, or change. All things change. Um, but giving into that uncertainty or giving into that unknown in practice in writing is absolutely part of something that I have to remember. But I skew a little bit on the other side of like, I can be a little certain. I definitely was way more certain when I was younger, and now I don't know anything, and it's been great.
Yeah. I really, as I get older, I really love to embrace knowing nothing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is interesting that you talk about experiencing and working with doubt in your writing because it's like I told you, like I really my experience of your work is that you set up your questions and then you really do answer them. You know, I wrote a note that for you, it seems like poetry truly is like a site for imagination, right? And I feel that your work imagines a world that you then step into. You know, I really feel like, yeah, yeah. I feel like that was my experience with the Year of Blue Water specifically. And I felt truly just like I was hanging out with you in your room, you know? And you were just like telling me these stories that you've created and that you live in. And it truly is just like
Hmm.
this record of what your life was in that moment of time, which I don't think is like something that people are really privy to, you know, like in anyone, right? With like, you know, very few exceptions of like the people you live with, maybe. But the thing I've been thinking about is that like things happen to me all the time and they also happen to other people all the time. And I never like get to see that. I never get to like live that life. There's this question that I think about all the time, which is if you could switch bodies with someone for 30 seconds, like who would it be and what would they be doing? Do you have an answer for that question?
Now I'm trying to think of an answer for that question.
Yeah, I really want to know. Um, but I think about it all the time because I'm just like I want to know like what people are doing. I'm like, can I see what's going on in your if I could just like shadow someone's day, I would. I absolutely would. That's like one of my favorite experiences reading Year of Blue Water. For me, like the 30-second switch, sorry, was my first ever like when I first encountered that question, I was like, would love to be LeBron James for like 30 seconds. Just just like what it feels like to dunk as like someone who's like muscular and 6'9". Just for 30 seconds, not no longer, no less.
Too
Yeah.
much pressure.
Too so much pressure. That's it. I just want the one dunk in. That's it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Um, I immediately thought of my dog, actually. I was like, let's go for non-human. What is it like to be a dog?
Yeah.
Because you know how they're like they can't see certain colors and they have all these apps. Like I have a little app that like blocks out the like everything except for blue and yellow, those things. But like I kind of just want to know what is it like to be my dog? Is how I'm perceiving her experience the same as what she actually experiences? She can't talk to me about it, so.
Yeah, I love that.
Or what would it be like to be a tree?
You got a better answer than I do. I want to know what it's like to be a tree. I feel like I just want to know that all the time. I feel like maybe most of my life is like a friction because I don't know what it's like to be a tree. And I feel like everything is just like revolving around that dilemma for me.
I mean, to be a tree is truly to like not have to think about an end of your life unless, there's some intervening factor. But trees just continue growing.
Yeah. I had a pressing, well, not pressing, but I had something I was really curious about,
Yeah, yeah.
which is that you're very like the fact that you're working on the literature archive. And it's kind of fitting that like yeah we've been asked to do this event for this festival because Liminal magazine for Australia is like very much for in my mind like the archive that's been missing. And
Hmm.
not to like reveal Leah's secrets, but like Liminal magazine started as like Leah, like one person, like talking to people. You know, just like Leah alone would like take the photos and like ask the questions and then alone upload them to a website. And then now it's like that's like how it began and now it's like this thing and now there's like a festival happening. And yeah, I just really when I thought about that I was like, oh, I'm so happy that things align in this way. But what I wanted to ask you was that everybody approaches an archive differently. Everybody wants something different from an archive. And what is it? If it's only one thing, or if it's more than one thing, what do you think you are searching for, or like want to know, or want to experience in creating or being a part of the archive?
Um, I think there's a couple of questions or there's a couple of answers to this question. Also like shout out to Leah and to Liminal and for all that they've done over, I don't know how old it is, but maybe you can tell me with fingers,
It's
eight
eight.
years old.
It's 8 years old. Whoo!
Oh my gosh, third grade. Congrats.
Whoa! Yeah.
Third grade, and there's already a festival. Who knows what's going to happen on the fourth grade or fifth grade times?
Yeah.
Um, But the idea for the literary archive started as my search for poetic community and mentors. And um, I've done, and I do research in the archives. I took myself out to a poet's archive for my birthday one year. So that's kind of what I'm like inside my brain, and also in real life. And that turned into this question of like, well, where are the archives of artists like me who worked with or through similar racial conditions or at different historical moments? And that became a much harder task. I know that there are scholars and archivists out there who probably have a better idea of the answer to this. But I also have the thought of like, I am someone who is kind of plugged in to these things. I am, kind of the person who would want to, who would be the audience for this. Why don't I know where any of this stuff is? So I see my place within the archive, particularly the Asian American Literary Archive, as more of a connector than a purveyor of original goods, if you will. I think that the efforts are out there, but I also know that the diasporas are large and few and far between sometimes outside of metropolitan areas. So my big goals are in taking out some of this intellectual history and knowledge from and within like Asian American studies programs within the academy, and also to bring not necessarily original pieces. It could be original pieces, but they don't have to be. But to bring archival materials back into the community. So my interest logistically with the archive would be partly to add an Asian American like archive, like a small like little corner to your Asian American local bookstore, and like spaces that are already third spaces that are providing a through line for particular communities to add to what they offer basically, and to give those materials back to the community outside of, you have to sign up for the appointment. It's only from 9 to 4. Too bad if you are a working person. You have to take the day off in order to even access that kind of stuff. So that's the material. But the, I guess, philosophical or um, passionate part of it is that uh, when I think about preserving literary history in particular, I'm thinking about not just what what is it that happened, but the history of how it felt. And how do we go about understanding, well, how did that person figure out how to say that thing that didn't have language yet? Like that's the unknown or the doubt or the uncertainty or that gut feeling of unease or joy or dis-ease that we are wrangling with and putting to words finally. And I want to know how it gets from the body onto the page, um, with, the understanding of the history and everything else that's going on. And with all the intellectual work that we've done over the past several decades, across the world, not just in the US.
Yeah. My heart started racing when you said I want to know what it was like for for it to come from the body and onto the page. And I'm like,
I mean, that is the distance desire,
yeah.
because it is full of many distances.
Yeah. I'm like sitting here and it's like coursing through my veins and I'm like trying to figure out how to like continue as the person I've been. um yeah.
Anyway, I
That
love
is really.
archives.
Yeah. I can tell. It's funny because like your books are an archive onto themselves, right? Of like your life, what you were thinking, what you were
Hmm.
feeling. And then the reading newsletter, also like I read that and I'm like, well, it's also become a place that I go to because like there were weekly and then monthly, right? And I was like
Hmm.
following it the whole time. And I was like, oh yeah, when I read this letter, this was happening in my life. It's like attached
Wow.
to those memories. Yeah. This is what I was thinking about. This is when I like decided to go on my writing hiatus. This encouraged me to like do that.
Yes.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, it's just like to have that record really is like something it is special. Like it is a special thing to be able to like have and look back on.
Hmm.
The reading, by the way, is like very popular here. I feel like
Cool.
there's like a time like maybe 2 years ago or something where like me and all my friends were just talking about the reading. We were just like, did you hear about this? Have you like what about that one line that he wrote or this idea? It was just like this gathering, like a really informal book club about the reading.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Something a really beloved teacher of mine told me before I started teaching for the first time that I will always repeat and never forget is she told me that the only thing that you need to do when you are teaching a literature class is to love your students because that's all that they want and all that they need. And that literature is just the occasion. She was like also like, don't say that, but like now I'm saying it all the time. But like the literature is not the point. The point is that it was something that connected you with other people and that like you had dinner or you like went out afterwards or something like that. Like genuine human experience and connection. So that's great to hear.
Totally. Now that's coursing through my veins. Literature is not the point. It's the conduit. It's so true. I'm like really happy to like hear someone else say that because I think for a time I like just twisted a lot of my thinking because I just thought so much about what I was doing. Like, what is the point of like making anything? And I think I just like forgot that literature isn't the goal. It isn't it like by any for me at least by any measure. It's like not what I want to be like prioritizing. I want the connection to be what the priority is. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, that being said, it's a really powerful conduit. I mean,
Yeah.
powerful enough so
Yeah.
that I feel you and I both feel connected to dead people
Yeah.
or versions of ourselves who no longer exist or um, versions of other people who no longer exist.
Mm.
Like the Nicole Seeley who wrote Object Permanence
Yeah.
probably is not the same Nicole Seeley.
Yeah. Whoa, I hadn't thought about it in that way. Now I want to know what she would say to that. True.
Holler.
Yeah, yeah. Let's just get her to like phone in. Uh,
Mm.
do you have any like funny stories about being at like poetically significant like cultural sites, like the Emily Dickinson Museum? Like, did you like witness her ghost? You know, like
Oh, that's so funny. Um, Funny stories about significant poetic sites. This is a funny story about me. This is a funny thing for me to say about myself, which is that I take all of these things so seriously. Um, I'm like, what's funny about it? Like, it's just so important. But like, um, I think there are a lot of like little funny things that happen. Like I'm just thinking because you mentioned Emily Dickinson Museum. I I really like feel Emily Dickinson way more when I think about her in relation to writing about her, which I think is very interesting. When I was going through the Emily Dickinson Museum, what I was imagining or thinking about was a Linda Gregg essay where Linda Gregg talks about Emily Dickinson as someone who was always only at the top of the stairs. She was not writing she wrote letters to be received by other people. She herself was not to be received, if you will. So I just kept thinking about Emily at the top of the stairs, looking down on us while we were talking and reading and, reading her poetry even.
yeah. Well, now I want to go to the museum and have that same thought. Have you seen the show? Have you seen the show?
I have not seen the show, no. But is it good lesbian content?
I haven't seen it either. I'm so
Oh,
sorry.
okay.
I'm
Well,
so sorry to all the
someone on the
lesbians.
internet after this is going to let us know.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, but I feel very connected to writers who have passed, though. A lot of my poetic reading is not usually in this century. I'm like always looking back to the 20th century. I'm reading the letters of Elizabeth Hardwick and Robert Lowell right now, the Dolphin letters, which was edited by the late Saskia Hamilton. So. And Saskia was one of my professors. So every time I pick up that book before bed, I think about Saskia and her teaching, and I feel like she's still teaching me. So again, not a funny story. It's so serious, but like it's deeply meaningful for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course. Of course. But funny can be serious. You know?
True. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
It can be very.
Seriously funny.
Yeah, it's just. What is it that draws you into poets prior to this century?
Well, the first poetry that I was really attracted to was the poetry of the post-war Polish Jewish poets who were very much contending with devastation and destruction, and asking kind of that question of like, is poetry possible after what happened? And I feel like we're in another moment like that that is deeply ironic in some ways. So I think I'm looking for uh I think there's a part of me that's like deeply romantic and very interested in the big feelings and how they are expressed in I guess with a little bit of distance. Um my writing is I think like certain kinds of my writing are more lyrical or more interested in the like an older kind of music is I guess the closest that I can articulate that. I don't use tons like obviously outside of my prose poems, but I don't use tons of like, for example, modern vernacular or things like that. So there's a stylistic reason, but I think also um, a question of how did people contend with different kinds of crises before the long road of evisceration of the higher education system in the United States after it was like deeply administrativized. So yeah, the way writing sounds and what it's about is very different from like last century to this century. But I also believe that multiple histories are always happening all at once. So the in our century, like there's absolutely pockets that I maybe don't know about where people are doing that same kind of writing right now. So I just happen to, you know, be doing this a little bit back there in the I also shop a lot at used bookstores and I really love old rare editions of books. So that can be another reason why.
Yeah. Well, cool. I did notice that you don't have any lowercase poems. Or I haven't found any. Maybe I missed something.
I don't think I'm a lowercase. I mean, like I love bell hooks, but like
Yeah.
I don't really write the lowercase poems.
Yeah. No, it's interesting because I feel like when I was a very young writer and I was trying to figure out what like modern poetry is, I was like, oh, surely it's like the lowercase poem. Like surely that was like what ushered us into the era that we're in now. Like that's for me like the defining characteristic of to like poetry in 2024 is lowercase.
Oh, interesting. I feel like that was really big like 10 years ago too. So I mean, who started it? I mean, Lucille Clifton maybe was doing that. So there's I think like one can say that there's actually a super long tradition of it, but adapted to again modern vernacular. There's a quickness, I think, to the style of modern poetry that is not about it doesn't sound like da da dun da da dun da da dun da da. It sounds more like da 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 da.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know?
You got well, that was eerie. That was spot on. Yeah. I feel like
It's all a kind of singing.
yeah, it's all kind of see. I feel like you transported me to like 5 years worth of readings. You know, like just like they all just immediately came back to me.
But I think the older like voice of like da 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 like that is really also what inspired poet voice, for better or for worse. So whether or not the poems actually sound like that when you read them on the page is another story.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Poet voice. I'm gonna read your poems in a different voice now. I'm gonna try it out. I'm gonna try out what you just did. Um, I was gonna ask you how you got into poetry and what you had been doing in life prior to that, if there was a before.
Oh, there was definitely a before. I started writing poetry when I was pretty young, though. The I think I found the anthology that I read for the first time. It was like an international poetry anthology that I was just like, yes, this is what I want. Oh, you know what? My lowercase poems were in the style of the Polish poet Tadeusz Rozowicz. He wrote all these poems that were in the like this like deeply minimalist style that were just like there can be no language anymore, and like they're these really compact small stanzas, and I just really loved them because they said directly like why why write poetry when this woman who this like lady who was selling fruit across the street is no longer alive, is basically the vibe of what he was saying in a lot of his. He was really like devastated for very good reason. So a lot of his poetry like brings up those kind of moral questions, and I felt deeply moved by them. So I guess I was 13. So you know, uh, when you're living with trauma, trauma makes sense. Um, and but before that, I was like really interested in fiction, actually. I read a ton of fantasy books when I was a kid. I'm actually getting back into sci-fi and fantasy. Um, so, anyone in the audience, if you're watching this in August or if you're watching this like in June, those three people in the audience right now, let me know your like sci-fi recs or fantasy recs. But yeah, so there's definitely like at some point in my public life, I will hopefully publish a book of fiction or something like that. But for now, I'm deeply in this like other project that feels very poetic but may not be poetry. I don't know. I have to let it just be whatever it is.
Yeah, it's cool. I was gonna ask you about fiction and if you were planning on publishing any kind of fiction. I have that to look forward to. The fantasy. It's interesting. I haven't. The poets recently who have published novels haven't written genre fiction. Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been trying to write genre fiction myself. I've been trying to write like really, truly. I've like asked myself what is the most indulgent thing I can do, and so I've started writing romance novels or like romance fiction because I'm
Yeah.
just like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
let's bring it all out. Let's just put it all here.
Oh, you have a lot of passion in your poems, and there's so much love in what I read. So that makes sense to me.
It makes it. I think it makes too much sense. I think it's too like
It's too on brand. Like
it's
you have to go in a completely different
yeah
direction.
yeah yeah. It's I am similar to you in that I also got into poetry when I was like 13. And funnily enough, the my entry into poetry was also like quite. It was a sad book, and I was like, yes, this is like where I am. This is who I
Finally.
am. Yeah, man, this is what sees me, and this is what my identity is. And it was probably like this is maybe the most common answer among like any poets born from the years 1994 to 1997, which is that the collection that got me into poetry was Crush by Richard Sykin. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Which
Oh,
one?
yeah.
The Yale Younger. Also,
Hmm.
there you go.
That is a book that makes a lot of sense for an entryway.
Yeah.
But it's hard to get the psychic voice out of your head once you start to write your own writing.
I know.
It's
That's a
really
really
intoxicating.
that's a really apt observation because it's true. I feel like probably maybe most of my poetry is like me trying not to sound like Richard Sykin, and probably a lot of the poems I read are like, aha, I see which poems you like from Richard Sykin because I can tell.
Mm.
Yeah. What are your plans for the next week? Whether that's like writing to do with writing or to do with like what are you excited about? What are you looking forward to?
Um, okay, I have to respond to what you just said about resisting writing a Richard Sykin poem. I have a prompt for you, which is to actually write a poem as much as possible in the voice of Richard Sykin, to see where that leads you. Just, just like if you haven't let yourself have it for a while, like why not indulge? If you're in this other indulgence place with the romance fiction and stuff. So that's your assignment after this conversation. Um, but I am I have a lot of meetings this week, honestly. Like fun, exciting meetings. Some logistical stuff for Asian American Lit Fest. There's a lot of planning happening in my life right now. I'm heading a big project at work that I'm planning for. I'm doing research on. I'm meeting with people who are possibly going to consult for the literary archive for me on some various projects that I want to like build it out a little more. And I also want to work on the archives Asian American Lit Fest events that are going to be happening here in Seattle. So that's another like piece of the puzzle. But in terms of like things that are not work, because that's not all of life, sadly. I will there's a food walk happening in the International District here in Seattle that has like four, $6, $8 like bites that you can get. It's just like a little walk, like a kind of like a night market type thing, but it's not at night. So I'm gonna try to go to that because and go really hungry so that I can get as many of the options as possible. And it's gonna hopefully be another way for me to like get to know the neighborhood a little bit more because I have my like regular spots, but I'm excited for that. I've really enjoyed the like Asian diasporic communities here in Seattle since moving here last year. That's been really a highlight of my experience. So if you're ever in Seattle, there's a really beautiful, vibrant community here in that regard. Um, what else am I excited about? Oh, this is work too. I'm starting on a lecture on the unknown and poetry, but I'm excited about it because it's like something that I always think about. And yeah, just working on like what does it mean to read and write in a state of not understanding what you're reading or writing. So I think that's going to be a lot of fun um, for a nerd like me. Uh, and I'm probably gonna watch more of Long Island Medium and Rico to the Rescue, which is an HGTV show about home renovations gone wrong. Um, and I have a lot of calls lined up, like personal calls too. So just talking to a lot of people. My partner's out of town for quite some time this month, so I'm reliving my bachelor life, which is kind of nice. I have a whole bed with my dog.
That's cool.
What about you? What are you doing?
what am I doing? Oh my goodness. I am
Yeah, I clapped it back to you. That's
Oh
right.
yeah, you did. I'm like, wow, life for me is like so blurry at the moment that I'm like, what is there to do? On Saturday, funnily enough, my best friend's kid brother, he's made this music album, and I'm gonna be like narrating his documentary about making the album.
Whoa,
Yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
cool.
It's very just something to do, you know. Not I really enjoy it. I've been getting to know his kid brother like in a different light because of I was like, wow, I didn't know you had this life, and now I get to like talk about it. I am lunching. I in September I'm gonna go to a K-pop concert, and I feel like that's what
Ooh.
I'm hanging on to every day. I'm just like, okay, September, September. Let's make it till September. As a summary statement, I think life is very exciting. It sounds very exciting for you. I'm also very excited. I think my capacity for resilience at the moment is like on the floor, and I'm trying to like figure out how to like get it again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But before we wrap up, I really truly want, if you would grant me this wish, I really want to hear Antiobod in your voice. If you
Oh, sure,
may
yeah.
read it. Yeah.
Can you hand me one of the books next to you, actually?
Yeah, sure.
Just pass it over.
Yeah, here you go.
Oh, thank
Oh,
you.
yeah, there you go. Yeah. You got it.
Wow. Okay, let me find the page here. Um,
Do I know the page?
okay, 25.
Yeah.
I do all of these things. It's so funny to read the first line. Anti-Obad. I think is it Obad or Obeyed? I've heard it said both ways.
Yeah, I was like, when I was planning on talking about this poem, I was like, I gotta take a risk here. I don't know. I think it's Obad, but I think Obeyed sounds nicer. Well, how do you say
Mm-hmm.
it?
I've been saying Obad, but like maybe my entire career, you know, will collapse under the weight of the pronunciation of this one word. And also there are dialects of English.
Yeah.
So anti-Obad. I love waking up at 6 a.m. I love the early birds. I love the long dark of the winter day, the never-ending plumpness of summer. Severe and quiet, loving and ministered by light, both beautiful. I have not written in months and months. What will I do about it but slowly go further back into where I left off? I cannot fear my own face, knowing its alterations.
That's so good. It's so good. That's so good. I feel
Thank
like
you.
I was at a concert just now.
Maybe
Thank
this
you.
is the K-pop.
This
It's a C-pop concert.
it's a
Okay,
C-pop
yeah.
concert.
I can
Yeah.
read the. It would be a. I guess it would be a Taiwanese pop concert if I read the Teresa Ten poem.
Thank you so deeply for reading Antiobod and for this whole conversation, and your presence and your laughter and your smile and the dog sounds. And yeah, thank you for your stories. Like, I really have appreciated talking to you. I wish this would go on and on and on. When you talked about Seattle, I was like, I wonder how much that costs to go to Seattle. I very recently looked up flights to Utah, and I was like, how does traveling take 2 days from Australia to the United States? Like, how is that something that exists and like the world is truly so large? How far is Utah from
Hmm.
where you are?
Probably 2 or 3 hours by plane.
That's so different to 2 days. 2 days one way.
Yeah.
One way.
There's no stopping. It has to be stopping.
Yeah, I think there is like the mandatory stopping, but
Mandatory rest period.
yeah. But still, two days on a plane, literally 48 hours. I was like, that's not. That doesn't seem like something that should be
No, that's a
possible.
lot.
That's so much.
No.
Yeah,
I think it might be that long because you're going around the belly of the earth.
that makes sense. The belly of the earth.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. And usually the way that they get around, no pun intended, to further off places as they go closer to the pole. But we wouldn't be able to do that in that case. I would really like to visit Australia at some point.
Have you ever
So-
visited Australia?
No, have you ever been to Seattle?
No, I've never been to Seattle. But I'd like to go. I would love to do. If you came here, I'd show you everything.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I'd love to hang out. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Get a
But-
coffee.
yeah. Get a coffee. Try some desserts. Some food.
Write some poems
Read-
in the voice of Richard Seikin.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just mutually, both of us just scribbling. No, thank you. Thank you very, very kindly. So to end, I want to say that the bookseller for Liminal Festival is Amplify Books, which is Australia's only online bookstore specializing in BIPOC books. I really encourage everybody to purchase Yanyi's books through them. I didn't even know that was possible, but go do it. They're independent. What else? What else would you want? What else would you want? And for the rest of the festival, please check out all the other events. The lineup is like astonishing. So yeah, I hope everybody has a great time whenever you're watching this. I hope life is okay for you. And Yanyi, I also hope life is okay for you when this releases.
Me too.
Yeah. Me also. Thank you.